Welcome to Elite Outcome Academy. Before the blow up, because this thing is most certainly to blow up. But before it does, I'd like to take some time just for the audience to get to know me. And one of the stories that I want to tell today is about how I have had to train myself to be a man. I've had to train myself to become who I am today because I did not have the proper influence or coaching or mentorship or any of that. Matter of fact, I had quite the opposite. And it's very important that we go through this process. So one of the things that I did to raise myself into who I am is I wrote an essay, and maybe at some point it'll be linked below in the future. Maybe that kind of stuff will be here, but it's called Responsibility Over Emotions. And Responsibility Over Emotions was written during a moment when I was very frustrated and upset. I had anger coursing through my body. My jaw was clenched, my shoulders were rocks, and I was in the middle of doing the dishes. And actually, there's several of the frameworks that I teach that came from this moment, but responsibility over emotion being one of them. And I sat there in two different states. And I really think this is probably what becoming a man is having the ability to be in two different states at the same time. Which means I was feeling everything that I felt justified in order to tear the world down with, while simultaneously being non-reactive to those emotions that I was feeling and using a gentle action to make sure that the dishes I was washing didn't break. I went beyond that, which was something that I teach in the academy, which also created Hack Your Behaviors and Hack Your Tasks. So what I've done is, from this very moment where I wanted to be intensely aggressive, I would have much rather have smashed those dishes than wash them gently with care and respect to the environment that I was in. It has been a staple of mine, a very, very real moment in time where I gained a whole bunch of mental and emotional control. Now, I had this control previous, right? Very few times have I actually exploded and been destructive physically, right? Like, my one pinky is curved because when I was a teenager, me and my brother got into a fight. I punched the door. Right, I punched the door frame and it broke my finger. Last time I did that, right? Now, as you get to know me, you'll hear me talk about my history of fighting. I've been in dozens and dozens of street fights. I'm no fighter. Please do not approach me thinking that I'm some tough guy. That is not the case. I've definitely gotten beat up as many times as I have won fights. I'm not a trained professional. I was a knucklehead, and we'll leave it at that, okay? That is not part of who I am anymore. Don't get me wrong. I will protect. I will use my capability and capacity as a man with the ability to be violent very selectively, but only in the case of defending myself or my family or somebody else that is less vulnerable than I am. But in this moment where I had to be conscious of what I was feeling. I had to be conscious of the actions that I was taking. I had to be conscious to not use my previously very well developed skill of runaway behavior, right? Where what I used to perceive as me removing myself from the situation so things didn't get further out of hand, which was true, it had become a skill of escapism. To run away, so fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of these things were very, very like relevant and intense at any given time. No control. Allowing the genetic and naturally occurring nervous system mechanisms to be the boss of this meat suit. So I sat there and I calmly, with my body, the motions, my physiology, calmly did the dishes while internally raging. Okay. I did so with great intention, and this is something that is very important, right? I had to be very intentional and calculated about every move that I was making. Putting the plug in the sink. We did have a dishwasher, but it didn't really work very well. Putting the plug in the sink, putting the soap in the sink, filling the sink up with water, stacking the plates, stacking the cups, stacking the bowls, setting the pans. And what I did was I started writing this essay, Responsibility Over Emotions, and designing my life with intention under intensity. Okay? But how did I get to this place? How did I get to this place to be able to choose to be intentional in this moment? Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had been practicing my ability to become a better person. I had been practicing my skills and my talent of becoming who I am today. Now, this took place many years ago now, and that had been after years of listening to personal development and self-help and mindset stuff. So I somewhere kind of like unconsciously had been developing myself into somebody who could meet myself in this moment and become who I needed to become, which was this 2 version self, right? Simultaneously feeling rage and upset and frustration while also remaining calm and being intentional. Now, I didn't have anybody to teach me that. I didn't have anybody in my life to take me to the side when I needed it the most, as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, and say, hey man, I notice that you're a little bit out of control. I didn't have that. I didn't have a dad to be like, hey, what is wrong with you? Let's figure this out. I didn't have any really good corrective mentorship in my life. My dad was very, very passive. A good man. He was a good man. He passed away this year in January at 83 years old. He lived a long life. He was a good man. He provided a house for us, but he didn't really do a good job of making it a home for us. And the women in my life, my stepmom and my mom, very intense, aggressive, not feminine women. And so we'll save that for another video. But right now, what I'm talking about is raising myself through the process of going back and as an adult and talking to that inner child, talking to that inner teenager, talking to that young man who did not have the ability to be self-regulated. And so I had to retrospectively apply the trainings and teachings that I should have had throughout my earlier years, and did so reflectively, did so journaling, did so in internal dialogue, which all of that is turning into a book called Goodbye Buddy. But the ability to go through and do that for myself led me up to this moment where I was, fighting with my wife at the time, and we had 2 young kids at the time, and everything was very, very frustrating. We were crammed in this little apartment, and everything was overwhelming. I did not feel proud of myself. I was battling a lot of stress and depression and anxiety and self-worth issues. But I will never forget. I mean, I can recall it very, very vividly, very visually, where I was standing, what the lights in the room were like, what the dishes looked like, what the counter space looked like, where everybody was sitting. I can recall it very intently because it really, really mattered in this moment that I had the ability to stop and learn these techniques. If you find yourself in this position, then I would encourage you to take some self-reflective time to go back and say, hey, right now, this version of me isn't important. But the 5-year-old version of me is, the 10-year-old version of me is, the 15-year-old version of me is. That version of me is important. And I want to take the knowledge, the experience, the perceptions, the awareness, the things that I crave, the things that I've noticed, the things that inspire me, the things that I'm aspired to become. I want to take all of that information and I want to take and coach my 10-year-old self about certain aspects of it, right? And do so in a 3rd, 4th, 5th grade way, right? And do so in a way that will bring some healing to your now present self. Because you can retrospectively go back and say, hey, 10-year-old me, I know you're angry. I know you want to run away. I know you probably have run away. But I want you to know something. I want you to know that you can stop. You can not react. You can go talk to somebody. You can do these things. And so you retrospectively go back and you apply and replace and install these things. So that way, fast forward, you're like, okay, I think maybe I can actually start doing this stuff. Maybe I can actually start communicating. Maybe I can actually start saying the things that need to be said and take actions that need to be taken, because the fear and the disappointment and the betrayal and all of that stuff from the past, I've learned it now. I didn't really get to experience it at, 12 or 13 years old. But I got to pretend to teach the 12 or 13-year-old self version of me the way that I wish I would have been. And so now we get to start making things whole. So I wanted to share this story with you guys. I wanted to share these thoughts. Responsibility over emotion is a big deal. And let's take another minute or two to break that down, okay? So responsibility over emotion. What does this mean? It means having the ability to do what is necessary intentionally without the necessary without necessarily reacting to the way that we feel. I mean, and you can practice this in simple terms. I teach this in much greater detail inside of the academy, but to not want to get out of bed in the morning, but do it anyways, right? That's responsibility over emotion. To not want to go to the gym, but do it anyways. That's responsibility over emotion. To want to yell and scream and call names, but not doing it anyways, right? To want to go out of your way to make somebody else's life miserable because you're in pain and not doing that anyways. You understand? Responsibility over emotion. It's a big deal. Become elite. Find somebody to be kind to today.